ワーパフ Z より私たちの方が勝っているものはお金だわ。その通り。
Approved by Jeff Bezos. We opened at the Shirogane residence where everyone, sans Himiko, were running around in preparation for the arrival of her sister, Miko. She was coming back from study abroad in Europe, and like any true 1%er, she came by a private jet, though at least this was an actual jet that looked pretty awesome, garish colors aside. On her way home, little Miss Kaiba encountered the girls.
あれが噂のパワーパフガールズ
Shouldn't you be more focused on getting rid of the robot girl Z? Hell, even her docking bay seemed to be the same place where they stored the Mazinger Z. But yeah, the main takeaway from this story was something that they had been building up for a while throughout the series, the relationship between the Shirogane sisters. As while they weren't totally ignoring their younger child, the parents were clearly playing favoritism with Miko. Thus, there was also a sense that Himiko might have resented her sister, much like the relationship between Helga and Olga Bataki. Yeah, surprisingly, that wasn't exactly the case, and in some ways was even sadder. Himiko actually greatly admired her sister and wanted to spend time with her, but her parents and even her army of maids took priority. Thus, when she wasn't being given any attention from them and didn't even have someone to blame her loneliness on like Helga, she probably felt like she had nothing, even with all of the money in the world.
そんなことないわよ。パパもママも。
Okay, yeah, that's kind of cute. That said, while the elder Shirogane sister was genuinely good to her family, she also wasn't exactly a duchess like her dub name suggests. With that, the sisters went to Mojo to hire his services, which, yeah, this is likely a reference to Mojob, where Princess also hired Mojo to help her take down the girls. On a bit of a side note, this shouting exchange between the far-apart villains is one of my favorite scenes of the OG, and while this anime unfortunately doesn't have an equivalent scene, I do have to applaud this Mojo's savviness as he initially rejected just getting some cash and bananas. Yeah, investing in gold right now might not be that bad of an idea, especially considering a little thing called a recession that we might or might not be in, depending on who you ask. With that, Mojo launched one of his usual attacks, though this time under the instruction of Miko. Also, yeah, the animation here was noticeably better, but it was also some recycled frames from Hiko's first episode. Though don't worry too much, Yoshikazu Tomita isn't going to completely throw it in here. Anyway, while the reused animation pretty much dictated that Mojo was going to lose, Miko managed to get what she wanted. And after a few more Super Robot references, the Duchess introduced herself to the girls. Hey Alice, I think Mirage is trying to steal your gimmick! And yeah, she came out as a brunette in a purple dress, which might be a reference to Bunny, which if that's the case, that's kind of sad. However, her true gimmick turned out to be that she was Taskmaster and managed to fight the girls with variants of their own attacks. Hey, I'll take it over this poorly done kind paste job from Black Widow. Certainly helps that she seemed to pay Tomita to animate her fight. As for as brief as all of this was, there was some very impressive attack animation with Miko's weapon pulling some impressive Ruby-esque transformations. However, there was an established time limit on her powers, so they needed to wrap things up. Thus, she seemingly ordered Mojo to deliver the final blow, only to save the girls herself at the last minute. Not too surprisingly, this was also all a part of her keikaku. As later, a very familiar looking narration began playing on television showing a heavily edited video of Miko defeating Mojo alone and saving the girls. And so, once again, even though it's the first time, the day was saved by Shirogane Z. And yes, to really hammer home this whole sequence, they actually brought in the VA for the Japanese dub of the narrator of the OG series. Thank you, Shirogane Z! On a bit of a side note, this guy normally doesn't voice act and is more of a stand-up comedian, but he also does do a pretty damn good approximation of Tom Kenny. Thus, the Powerpuff Girls were born, using their ultra superpowers. Now certainly taking him over other narrators I can think of right about now. With that, the story that might also be referencing Major Competition, an episode where a phony superhero faked all of his good deeds, ended with this antagonist managing to get away with her antics because... The next story opened with Kuriko declaring that she was gonna eat a cream puff Momoko had been saving. This ended up drumming up a conversation between the girls about how they were envious of each other's family lives, with Miyako wanting to switch with Momoko, Momoko wanting to switch with Kaoru, and Kaoru wanting to switch with Miyako, and yeah, going by the title, you could guess where this was going. As for how, well, after saving an illegal dumper from Fuzzy Lumpkins, the Pink Hillbilly managed to sumo slap them around the world a few times. Yeah, a little weird that they never established that this version of the villain was freaking strong, but whatever, they collided heads, which led to them switching bodies. Okay, so now the question is, are they going to do the smart thing and not also switch the voices?
いててて、単行部できちゃいます。ファジーの野郎。
You chose poorly.
Anyway, in a bit of a happy little coincidence, they all managed to switch bodies with the teammate that they wanted to experience the home life of. This led to Miyako being able to spend time with Kuriko, Kaoru having Miyako's huge house almost all to herself, and Momoko enjoying the company of Kaoru's brothers while in her body. Also, not sure why Kaoru was so surprised by the size of Miyako's house since she had already slept over there, but whatever. I will say a fun aspect of the story was that we finally got to see more of Kaoru's family life beyond just the third ending theme. And not too surprisingly, with Dad who's seen to be contracted with NGPW, they enjoy putting each other in sleeper holds and doing some tag team wrestling. Now you see, this is what happens when all you ever watch are Young Bucks' matches. Tags mean nothing to those idiots. Meanwhile, while I think this is the first time we really got to see Momoko's parents, a lot of focus went to showing how Pop Harukaze might have competition over the title of brattiest little sister.
お姉ちゃんの方が大きい。お姉ちゃんの方が2ミリ大きい。
This is why we don't teach kids about the metric system here in the States. Lastly, while Kaoru managed to get away with a lot, eventually Granny went full Zen Buddhist on her, which as someone who's trained at a temple, I can tell you it's a lot worse than this. But yeah, all of the girls quickly came to realize that maybe the grass wasn't all that much greener on the other side. Wanting to go back to their normal lives, the girls tried to get the profs to change them back, but their attempts had proved fruitless. Thus, they egged Fuzzy into hating them again, and the episode ended with them switching bodies again, but still not in the right bodies. This was a fun little exploration of our main heroines, and one of the villainesses, through their families. Yeah, while these two stories had different writers, they did share a common theme of family and how we tend to be shaped by them. And while they're certainly not deep character pieces, as they don't totally focus on the subjects, they did inform us a little about them, especially in Himiko's case. Combine that with some very above average animation for this series, and you get an energetic look at the people in our lives who we really can't say no to. There had been a decent amount of build-up to the arrival of the Duchess of Shirogane, and for the most part, it lived up to it. Sure, from a whole series overarching standpoint, Miko was just a one-off villain of the week, but at least you can't say she did leave quite the impression. For a show where the grand majority of the rogues gallery can easily be dispatched, it is interesting to see an actually competent antagonist. This was likely due to the fact that her ambitions weren't really malicious, she just wanted a little more attention for both herself and her family's name. Miko is basically an intentional Mary Sue or Parody Sue, a character who was meant to get away with everything just to hammer home the final punchline, which was a good one here, if only for all of the effort they went to recreate the Japanese dub of the OG series. Hell, a lot of her sequences were very well animated by good old Yoshikazu Tomita, being really creative with some of them. Plus, it was just nice to see Himiko finally be able to be with her beloved sister, showing that while she can be a bit of a spoiled brat, part of that was likely to justify, in her own mind, being able to stand next to her well-accomplished sibling, who would probably accept her little sister in any form, really. And this whole family thing would continue into the latter story, which, while a bit of a standard body switch episode, did have the fun touch of really getting to see the families of each of the girls that also gave us a little perspective on how they ended up the way they are. We'll save talking about some of this stuff for an eventual series overview, but for now, I will say they did a good job really giving us an entertaining little exploration of our heroines through their families, showing how a lot of our eccentricities in general can come from households we were raised in. So overall, while nothing stellar and even kind of feeling a little too much like the same old thing at times, like family, this was an episode that you can't help but love a little. Hopefully, by the end of the week, we should have that 6 Ranger video done, and then we can move on to the stuff that I know y'all want me to move on to. Again, sorry video production has felt a little slow lately. Thankfully, other than one day, this month will be mostly uneventful, and we'll be able to pump out maybe 2 bigger format videos along with the usual content. So do look forward to it, and until then though, for now my friends, and excuse me. A subpoena to appear in court as a witness. Magical girl trademarks are serious business.